Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Philippine officials today defended before the country's Senate the arrest and transfer to the International Criminal Court of former President Rodrigo Duterte as they face allegations he was illegally abducted at the behest of a foreign institution.
Nasaan po ang warrant of arrest na inisyu ng hukuman ng Pilipinas? Wala. Without a valid warrant from a Philippine court, this was at best a warrantless arrest. Under the rules of court.
And the news starts now. Philippine officials today defended before the country's Senate the arrest and transfer to the International Criminal Court of former President Rodrigo Duterte as they face allegations he was illegally abducted at the behest of a foreign institution. Vice President Sara Duterte strongly maintained that her father was taken into custody by the Philippine National Police without a warrant of arrest issued by a competent Philippine court. Instead, the only warrant presented was from the International Criminal Court.
Mr. Senator, we surrendered an individual to the ICC. We did not surrender as a country, but he was surrendered due to a warrant of arrest issued by the ICC through the Interpol.
Nasaan po ang warrant of arrest na inisyu ng hukuman ng Pilipinas? Wala. Without a valid warrant from a Philippine court, this was at best a warrantless arrest. Under the rules of court.
This assertion was also supported by former spokesman Harry Roque, who echoed similar concerns about the legality of the detention process.
Unang-una, nakita niyo naman, sabi nila doon sa kanilang sinumite na sa habeas corpus na sinampa namin para kay Congressman Pulong na binasahan daw siya nung warrant of arrest. Hindi po totoo yan. Kasi wala pong pinakitang warrant of arrest. In fact, nagkaroon lang siya ng access sa warrant of arrest ngayong araw na ito. Kasi kagabi, bago pumasok sa detention facility si Attorney Kaufman, nagpa-print sa akin ng isang kopya ng warrant of arrest. At ngayon pa lang nabasa ni Presidente yung warrant of arrest laban sa kanya. Ilang araw na nakalipas matapos na siya ay naaresto at napadala rito sa The Hague.
At the Senate hearing led by the Committee on Foreign Relations, chaired by Senator Amy Marcos, Police Major General Nicolas Torre was questioned why Vice President Sara Duterte wasn't allowed to see former President Duterte as he was being prepared for transfer to the ICC. Vice President Duterte was barred from entering Villamor Air Base at the height of her father's arrest, despite the former president requesting to see her, stating that she was his lawyer.
One more thing that I noticed in the video, no? Ang sabi ni Pierre RD, papasukin niyo anak ko, abogada siya. At ang sinabi mo, hindi ko siya papapasukin. Why not, Gerald Torre?
That is a decision. That is my call, sir. That is my decision. Considering that he had already been assisted by 3 lawyers all throughout that time, sir. And gabi na ho yun, sir. The request was made at around mga 9 o'clock na, sir. 11 hours after the first arrest.
Tanggalin mo na yung titulo ni Inday Sara. Kalimutan mo na siya na Vice President. So, pagpalagay natin hindi siya Vice President. She is an immediate member of the family. Nung kami po ay nakakulong, ang immediate members of the family, 24 hours pwede bumisita sa amin, nakakulong kami. Ito hindi pa nakakulong. Anak ito. Bakit hindi niyo pinapasok?
Maliban doon, is this not a violation of RA 7438 that requires that you guarantee access to an attorney? In addition to the immediate family, the President also said na yung anak niya, yung babae, abogado ko yun, papasukin nyo. Hindi nyo pinapasok. Abogado yun eh.
Actually, sir, first to answer the question of Senator Estrada, sir. I have told the President that they can visit him at his detention facility, because at this time the order of the day is to load him into a plane. So that's what we endeavored to do, and that's what happens, sir.
Ano niya bibisitahin yung tatay niya? Sa Netherlands. Hindi naman dito tinray eh. Hindi naman dito kinasuhan eh. Sa ibang bansa eh. Oh, bakit hindi niya man lang binigyan ng kortesiya yung anak na isang abogada na magkukonsulta?
Our mission at that time, sir, is to deliver him to the body who issued the warrant, sir.
Nasa batas yan. Nasa batas yan, General.
Ko lang si Senator Jinggoy, tama po siya. Hindi lang yung immediate family, medical doctor, pare or religious minister, any national non-government organization ng CHR, international non-government accredited by the Office of the President. Lahat yan may access, pero pinagbawalan ninyo.
And here are other developments in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In a phone call described as very good by President Donald Trump, he and Russian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to collaborate on efforts to bring an end to the war.
Freed Ukrainian prisoners of war celebrated on Wednesday after Russia and Ukraine each agreed to release 175 captured troops. Moscow said it freed an additional 22 wounded Ukrainians as a goodwill gesture, following a phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. But just hours after that call, in which a deal was reached to pause attacks on energy infrastructure, both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating the new agreement. Moscow said Ukraine hit an oil depot in southern Russia, while Kyiv said Russia had struck hospitals and homes and knocked out power to some of its railways. This all came on the same day that Trump had a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that Trump described as very good. Before their conversation, Zelensky said Moscow's continued attacks showed its words did not match its actions.
Putin did not agree to a complete ceasefire, an unconditional ceasefire. And it is very important to note that he will find some opportunities to circumvent a complete ceasefire, because he needs to put pressure on Ukraine. And this is possible when you conduct certain operations on the battlefield, or when you act with constant escalations in the sky, at sea. You use missiles. You use ballistic missiles, so that people live in constant shock.
He also said that the United States should be in charge of monitoring any ceasefire.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
The hour-long call on Wednesday between Trump and Zelensky was their first conversation since an Oval Office meeting descended into a shouting match in late February.
Intelligence sharing in terms of defense for Ukraine will continue to be shared.
Later, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said Zelensky asked Trump for additional air defense support.
President Zelensky asked for additional air defense systems to protect his civilians, particularly Patriot missile systems, and President Trump agreed to work with him to find what was available, particularly in Europe.
She also said Trump has moved beyond a previously negotiated U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal.
We've moved beyond just the economic minerals deal framework, and we're looking at a lasting ceasefire. Right now we're at a partial ceasefire, but again, the president is sending his highly skilled, intelligent, and experienced team to Saudi Arabia later this week to continue fighting for peace in this conflict.
Trump has long promised to end Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II, but his outreach to Putin has unnerved European allies, who fear it heralds a fundamental shift after 80 years in which defending Europe from Russian expansionism was the core mission of U.S. foreign policy.
Well, Russia is trying to get a ceasefire where no additional military aid arrives in Ukraine. And that would be devastating for Ukraine because Russia will continue to receive its military supplies, both from its domestic sources and likely from the Iranians and the North Koreans. So it would greatly handicap Ukraine. And of course, the longer it went on, the more handicapped Ukraine would become. It's a condition that the Ukrainians really can't tolerate very long.
The minimum that can be achieved here is a ceasefire. And what we already see now is that the Russian side is trying to buy time. It has not agreed to an unconditional ceasefire. Vladimir Putin himself has not agreed to. And he sees benefits for Russia through direct interaction with President Trump. and demanding that he would agree to an unconditional ceasefire. He only has to discuss some things with President Trump himself, gives him an access which he knows is usually beneficial for the Russian side. So he is getting all the benefits of trying to prolong and to stall the implementation of a ceasefire. We are likely to see this continuing Russian suggestion that they are really close to agreeing to a ceasefire, but before issue Z on the US-Russian agenda has to be resolved.
The Pentagon is considering halting the expansion of U.S. military forces in Japan. This move is part of broader efforts by the Trump administration to reduce federal government spending. According to a report by CNN citing a defense official and a briefing document, stopping the planned expansion could save approximately $1.1 billion. However, it also poses political risk for the U.S. in Japan and could diminish command and control capabilities in the Pacific. The U.S. had been planning to upgrade its forces in Japan into a joint force headquarters, enhancing coordination with Japan's self-defense forces. This decision comes as the Trump administration reviews government structures, exploring options to scale down or dismantle agencies. The Department of Defense is working with the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, led by Elon Musk, to identify cost-saving measures. Other proposals include merging the U.S., European, and African military commands and eliminating a directorate responsible for joint force development, training, and education. These changes reflect a broader strategy to streamline military operations while addressing rising security challenges from nations like China and North Korea. South Korea and the United States have concluded their annual joint military drills, known as Freedom Shield, after an 11-day operation. The exercises aim to bolster the defensive capabilities of the two allies against evolving threats from North Korea. The drills reaffirmed the strong alliance between South Korea and the U.S., enhancing their combined defense posture. A key highlight was a river crossing exercise held in Yeoncheon near the demilitarized zone separating North and South Korea.
I think this is the best way to strengthen the U.S. alliance. If you look behind us, the bridge that was just constructed took the sheer effort of both U.S. and ROK soldiers. Two soldiers who, although they don't speak a common language, can come out here and complete a common task. I absolutely believe it is the symbol of the U.S.-ROK alliance. I don't think I could speak on the political situation at this level, but once again, I'll refer back to, regardless of politics, when asked, the soldiers in these formations, both U.S. and ROK, are stand side by side ready to support the U.S.-ROK alliance.
이번 훈련을 통해 여단 장병들이
This training provided an opportunity for the brigade soldiers to experience the importance of the South Korea-US alliance and maximize the interoperability of river crossing equipment. It provided an opportunity for South Korean and the U.S. soldiers to share their know-how and master the transfer capability while conducting river crossing operations together.
This exercise is part of ongoing efforts to ensure stability and deterrence in the region amidst North Korea's increasing military cooperation with Russia. President Trump is set to take a major step towards fulfilling a key campaign promise. Today, he will sign an executive order aimed at dismantling the Department of Education. Here's more.
U.S. President Donald Trump will sign an executive order on Thursday that aims to shut down the Department of Education, according to a White House summary seen by Reuters. It's a long-awaited order that acts on a key campaign pledge by Trump, who has called the department a big con job. Trump's new Education Secretary Linda McMahon has defended the president's plan to abolish the department in what would be Trump's first shutdown of a cabinet-level agency. The order directs McMahon to, quote, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states, while continuing to ensure the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. According to the summary, the order also mandates that any programs or activities receiving remaining department funds should not, quote, advance DEI or gender ideology. However, Trump cannot shutter the agency without congressional legislation, which could prove difficult. Trump's Republicans hold a 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, but major legislation, such as a bill eliminating the Education Department, would need 60 votes and thus the support of 7 Democrats to pass. Senate Democrats have given no sign they would support the plan. The Education Department oversees some 100,000 public and 34,000 private schools in the country. Although more than 85% of public school funding comes from state and local governments, the department provides federal grants for needy schools and programs.
And tonight we focus on a significant development in the European steel industry. The European Union has announced plans to tighten steel import quotas by 15% starting in April. Take a look. This move aims to shield the EU market from a potential surge in cheap steel imports, triggered by new tariffs imposed by the United States. European steelmakers are sounding the alarm, warning without these measures, the EU could become a dumping ground for low-cost steel, jeopardizing domestic production. In response, the European Commission is launching a comprehensive steel and metals action plan to safeguard the industry.
Il n'y a pas d'État sans acier.
There would no country without steel, and so there is no collective organization, an industry of chemistry or defense without steel. And so steel is becoming a strategic sector for us that must be defended. We will try with our tools. And I think it is reasonable for the European Commission to follow international rules. I think that if there is a need today to have an actor in the world who gives predictability, who respects international law, who is also able to have a rule of law, in short, and to have a regulatory environment that is predictable, it is the European Union. And so, yes, we will need rules that are able to predict that. What I'm saying about national security is that having the direct competence and the competence on tariffs and customs rights, we should possibly be able to opt for a concept of European security.
On devrait pouvoir, en tout cas, opter pour un concept de sécurité européen.
Under the new measures, steel imports within the established quotas, about 30 million tons last year, will remain tariff-free. However, any imports exceeding these quotas will face a 25% tariff. Looking ahead, the EU plans to introduce even stricter trade policies by 2026 to replace these safeguards. There are growing concerns that exporters from Canada, India, and China will redirect more steel to Europe as the U.S. market becomes less viable due to the tariffs.
Une partie de l'imprévisibilité, c'est aussi les relations internationales.
And a part of the unpredictability is also international relations.
Des tensions, des guerres.
And it's also the difficulty for us to anticipate tensions, wars, pandemics. And we saw that in the past, that cheap Russian gas, which was almost unlimited, has become rare, expensive. And we had to cut its supply in Europe from an international point of view. So let's avoid that tomorrow's steel is yesterday's gas. And that's why the strategy is fundamental for the EU.
Beyond trade barriers, the EU is also working on a pilot program with the European Investment Bank to help steel and aluminum producers secure stable energy contracts. Details of this initiative will be announced later this year. Political tensions are escalating in Turkey. A major opposition figure, Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, has been detained, sparking protests and accusations of a coup attempt against President Erdogan.
Protesters rallied near Istanbul's police headquarters on Wednesday following the detention of Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu, President Tayyip Erdogan's main political rival. İmamoğlu was detained on charges of corruption and aiding a terrorist group. The main opposition, Republican People's Party, called the detention a coup attempt and urged opposition groups to unite. Murat Sapankaya, a municipal worker, attended the pro-İmamoğlu protest.
We came here to support the mayor. They arrested him unjustly, so we are here to support him. And as a citizen of Istanbul, as the people, as citizens of the Republic of Turkey.
The move against the popular mayor follows a month-long legal crackdown on opposition figures. which has been criticized as a politicized attempt to hurt their electoral prospects. İmamoğlu, who leads Erdogan in some polls, faces charges including bribery, tender rigging and aiding the Kurdistan Workers' Party or PKK, which is deemed a terrorist organization by Turkey and its Western allies.
Üzülerek söylüyorum, milletimizin.
In a video posted on social media, İmamoğlu said he would not give up and would continue standing straight in the face of pressure. Erdogan's office did not immediately comment on claims that the detention was a political move. The government denies the opposition's charges, maintaining the judiciary is independent. It is meanwhile pressing to end a decades-long insurgency by the outlawed PKK after its jailed leader called for disarmament last month in what could be a big step toward regional peace. The next election is set for 2028, but Erdogan has reached his two-term limit as president. If he wishes to run again, he must call an early election ahead of finishing his term or change the constitution. Erdogan faced his worst electoral defeat last year when İmamoğlu's CHP swept Turkey's major cities and defeated his ruling AK party in former strongholds in nationwide municipal elections.
The mayor of Istanbul is the second most important elected post in Turkey after the presidential office, because the ministers in Turkey is right now being appointed, not elected, after the change of the political system from parliamentary to the presidential system. And in this regard, the post of the mayor of Istanbul is the second most important post in the country. And what has happened is, therefore, has the potential and will have the potential to upend the whole political picture in the country, the relation between the opposition and government. Now the climate for such a broader new form of relationship between Europe and Turkey will be very poisoned, will be very affected by what has just happened. So in a sense, we might still see the defense industry and the security cooperation, geopolitical cooperation, but that might not extend to other fields that will be very much beneficial for Turkey.
Italy's Mount Etna is putting on a fiery display. Europe's most active volcano is erupting again, lighting up the night sky with spectacular Strombolian bursts. That's right, the Italian National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology, or INGV, reported that the activity began Wednesday evening with new bursts erupting from the southeast crater. Multiple vents have become active, creating a dramatic scene. If an ash plume forms, forecast models suggest it would likely drift east-southeast, carried by the prevailing winds. Seismic data shows a significant increase in volcanic tremor amplitude, now reaching high levels. While Etna is known for its frequent and spectacular eruptions, the INGV is closely monitoring the situation, and so far, no major disruptions have been reported. Although there are no reports of significant ground deformation, experts are maintaining a vigilant watch on Mount Etna. The volcano's activity serves as a reminder of the powerful forces at work beneath the Earth's surface. A severe dust storm swept through New Mexico, causing widespread disruptions and forcing the closure of major highways. The storm reduced visibility to almost zero in some areas, making it extremely hazardous for drivers. Eyewitness videos captured the intensity of the storm, with dust swirling around vehicles and homes, making it impossible to see beyond a few feet. The National Weather Service issued urgent warnings about the zero visibility conditions and potential health risks, especially for infants and the elderly. In response to the storm, New Mexico's Transportation Department closed a significant stretch of Interstate 10, along with other state highways, to prevent accidents.
And imagine this, a ball of dust turning the sky a hazy yellow and whipping winds strong enough to make trees dance. And that's what El Paso experienced on Tuesday as a powerful dust storm rolled through. And these eyewitness videos show people navigating sidewalks with limited visibility. The whole city blanketed in this yellow dust cloud. National Weather Service got involved, issuing an emergency alert around 11 a.m. local time. They initially expected the dust storm warning to last until 2 p.m., but then things got a bit more intense. And local reports say another warning was issued shortly after, suggesting this storm was packing a punch.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. Finland has once again been crowned the happiest country in the world, and that is according to the latest World Happiness Report.
They have lots of resources, GDP, and especially they share it very equally, so it's a rising tide lifting all boats approach with them. They also redistribute this level of income through the welfare state, which takes and helps out people who otherwise fall off the ship, and that gives them a safety net which provides psychological safety as well, which is obviously very important in the way people feel. And then there is they exhibit healthy lifestyles, healthy behaviors resulting in healthy life expectancy, and a healthcare system which is mostly universal and free. And then importantly, social support. So they trust each other, both others in the community around them, but also the institutions. And that turns out to be really, really important and a bit of a differentiator from other rich countries with long life expectancies.
This marks its 8th year at the top with a score of 7.75 out of 10. Denmark, Iceland, and Sweden follow closely behind, while Afghanistan ranks last with a score of 1.36. Interestingly, sharing meals with others is also linked to well-being globally. However, the report highlights a rise in anxiety and stress worldwide. A provocative call from France that has sparked a heated debate across the Atlantic. A French politician, Raphael Glucksmann, has suggested that the United States should return the iconic Statue of Liberty to France. Take a look.
This comes amid concerns that America no longer upholds the values of freedom and democracy that the statue represents. Glucksmann, a member of the European Parliament, argues that recent U.S. policies under President Trump have betrayed these ideals.
Ne laissons jamais. Let's make sure we never, ever let the Trump and Musk fan club into our country. Rendez-nous la statue de la liberté. Give us back the Statue of Liberty. On vous en a fait cadeau. We gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. Mais apparemment vous la méprisez.
And his comments have drawn a sharp response from the White House, which firmly rejected the idea of returning the statue.
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great country.
The Statue of Liberty has stood as a symbol of freedom and democracy in New York Harbor for nearly 140 years. It was a gift from France to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the American Declaration of Independence. Despite the controversy, it's unlikely that France can reclaim the statue, because according to UNESCO, the Statue of Liberty is U.S. government property and a World Heritage treasure. Glucksmann has since clarified that his statement was intended as a wake-up call for the U.S. He emphasized that while the statue belongs to America, its ideals belong to everyone.
From the screen to reality, Star Wars droids made a surprising appearance at NVIDIA's conference.
So I think it's because you see not a mechanical system, you see a believable robotic character that emotes, right? So, it can express happiness, it dances, but it can also express that it's shy at the moment. So It also can express that it is a bit angry. So if you come too close and it needs its space, right, then it can express that it's angry. So it's these emotions and it's sort of a fully complete character that we were able to build. I think that touches people in. You know, the technology is so good that you don't see the technology any longer. And so that's exactly the goal of the Walt Disney Company. So what's interesting about these droids is that they learn how to walk with reinforcement learning. So we use reinforcement learning that is similar to how we humans learn to walk. So we bring these droids into a simulation environment, and so we have some artist-provided motion. And so at the beginning they fall all the time if they try to take first steps, but then we ask them to imitate artist-provided motion. So over time they know how to walk in a stylized way that is authentic to the character.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.